Sean Payton said effectively what everybody else said last year. He just said it out loud as a coach who took over the job of the guy that did that last year, which he's typically not done. Very typically not done. And then, so Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, has been on absolute fire lately with pearl-clutching reactions to these things, and he had this big thing of, everybody was rushing to defend Sean Payton, but this is just a mistake. You shouldn't have done it, And then Payton himself comes out and says, I goofed. I had my Fox analyst hat on, and I should have had my coaching hat on.
Dude, that would have been rough if it was on Fox.
Well, this is my thing, right? So this is funny for a couple of reasons. Number one, in reference to the Florio thing, everybody was coming out and saying things, but they weren't defending him as much as simply saying, and almost everybody's head in very similar terms, which is itself suspicious. But they were all sort of saying, Sean Payton doesn't do anything by accident. Everything he does is deliberate. Like, he knows what he's doing with the media. They were all saying that, right? And then, so it's not like they were saying, he should have said it. This is great. This is fine. Like, no problem with the comments. They were all just making the point that this probably wasn't a mistake. And then Payton himself comes out and says, it's a mistake.
Big mistake.
But that doesn't mean he's telling the truth, right? But the funny part was he was like, I was putting my Fox analyst hat on. The dude never said anything like that when he was working for Fox. Like, this wasn't like this was a weekly occurrence. He was out there just blowtorching dudes in the NFL. He had the standard, NFL guy moonlighting on TV approach of never say anything particularly controversial, because in 7 minutes' time, you're going to be back working with those people again. So keep it, middle of the road, minor affronting type of stuff, right? So nothing about that made any kind of sense, other than I kind of agree with the people who say, on the balance of probabilities, Sean Payton has been around the block enough times to know that, you don't generally set fire to the guy that was in your job 5 minutes ago publicly, So there's probably a significantly larger chance than this was a deliberate act for whatever reason than he just accidentally lit him on fire in an interview.
Yeah, I mean, it's all overblown, of course.
But it is. I mean, that's a very...
Why would he...
He basically said this was the worst coaching job in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, he said what a lot of people were believing.
He did, but people don't say that. Coaches don't say that about
No, I know
coaches.
that. I mean, that's...
So that part is real.
That's the weird part. Like, you've burnt bridges with... not that, him and Nathaniel Hackett are going to be working together, but there's probably a lot of overlapping friends and colleagues in the industry and everything, and he probably rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Right. So
I don't know that it has... The only thing it does is maybe put more of a target on Sean Payton when if they start 1-4.
Also in Week 5.
And in Week 5.
They play the Jets.
But I'll get to that in a second. I mean, if they start 1-4, whatever, it's like, you think it was easy, huh? Yeah, look how easy it is, coaching Russ in the Broncos.
So let me ask you, if you agree with my assessment that this was some way calculated as opposed to, I had my Fox analyst.
What's the calculation?
This is what I'm asking you. What do you think he was trying to do with those comments?
I think he did just.
So you think that he just goofed and just accidentally blowtorched Nathaniel Hackett?
Yeah, I mean, he was, because he's probably, but let's just give him credit and say there's a kernel of truth here that last year's Broncos may not have been well coached.
The actual legitimacy.
I don't have to coach against Aaron Rodgers, so I can say it. It was a bad coaching job last year, right?
The actual legitimacy of what he's saying is almost a separate conversation. I don't think anybody is disagreeing with the foundation of his point, which is that may well have been the worst coaching job in NFL history. In a period where Urban Meyer was out kicking his own players and stuff, Hackett might have done worse. Remember, we were a couple of weeks into the Nathaniel Hackett thing,
debating that.
How soon is it how quickly can you fire a guy?
Yeah.
And genuinely, that was a few weeks. The crowd
kicked an 80-yard field goal on 4th and 5.
The crowd was chanting the snap count.
Yeah.
6, 5, 4. So they weren't going to false start again or delay of game. It was a train wreck. I saw recently another clip of the Manning cast. You remember where they kicked the 61-yard field goal thing? So it was the Mannings and Shannon Sharp on this, just before the half.
Right.
We make It was like 3rd and a mile. They dump it off to Javonte Williams, who gains like most of that back. So now it's like 4th and 5 from wherever it is, midfield. And Manning's like, okay, now let's call a timeout. Let's talk about this one. And it's like clock keeps running. And then they're like, what are they doing? Eli's like, I don't know if you want to let the clock run down this, but then they end up calling the timeout, like as the clock's about to expire, having burned 25 seconds almost down to the wire. And then it's like, they're going to kick it. They're kick what? And then Manning's like, they're kicking the field goal. Just like disgusted with it. That's one of that was,
Here's an 80-yard field goal at 4th and 5.
60, yeah, 64 or 60 something. Absolute like bungling of a just before the half situation, which was like standard. I mean, this was a complete and total train wreck. And we'll get on to the Aaron Rodgers thing in a minute, but what I find interesting every time Rodgers backs up Hackett, which he does quite a lot publicly, is when you listen to how he describes Hackett, it's never extolling the virtues of his coaching ability from an X's and O's standpoint or a scheme. It's always like, he makes it fun. It's great. I love that guy. And you're like, that's part of it. Nobody's saying that you want to be playing for a like whip cracking, dictatorial lunatic as coach. Fun is certainly a benefit. Feels like there needs to be more things than that, though.
Yeah. So the only benefits of doing it is protecting your quarterback, right?
Yes.
That's it.
There you go.
So you're protecting Russell Wilson.
You're putting all the blame on the guy that isn't in the building anymore, so that Russ doesn't feel like it's his fault.
I don't know if you need to do that publicly. I mean, I really think there's probably this human element of it where Sean Payton, like what you just described, he's grinding film from last year and he's like, what is this? What is this offense doing? Russ is in the wrong offense here. Like, why is he calling this? Why is he doing this from a game management standpoint? I just think the human element bubbled up and was like, man, that was bad last year. And he's been seeing all of this. He's seeing it in the building. He's seeing it in the players. He's seeing it on film. And then he just kind of slipped up.
If he had spent his entire TV broadcasting career talking like that, I would buy that. Like if when Sean Payton became a Fox analyst, you got unfiltered Sean and it was just like bombs left and right. Oh, all right. Yeah, I get that. I buy that. He was in TV mode. He just spoke his mind. But he wasn't. Like he was careful enough with his words when they mattered. And he knew he was talking. Like this wasn't, I thought we were off the record. Like he was an interview. He's not that dumb. He knew what he was doing. The only question is, what was he doing?
Yeah, so maybe he's protecting Russell Wilson a little bit.
Yeah. Now let's get on the Aaron Rodgers thing, because Rodgers was asked about it, obviously, on Back Together Weekend on NFL Network, and he gave a little answer.
With Pete Schrags.
Yeah, the end of which I think we have a clip of right here.
Thought it was way out of line, inappropriate, and I think he needs to keep my coach's names out of his mouth.
They're very, very professional looking here.
Yeah.
Good work. Tyler and team.
Slick.
Looking good.
So he had like a minute long, whatever, reply to that. That was the end of which the soundbite part. But again, he was like, so he said, one of my favorite coaches ever. Not the best, favorite. And then was talking about how, he makes the whole thing fun. He's like, it's like, this is a lot like how they were speaking about him when he went to Denver, which is, it's sort of like the wide receiver thing. If the first thing you're telling me is about his contested catch skills, like if the first thing you're telling me about a coach is he's just fun to be around.
Well, we'll see.
I feel like he should lead with something else.
It makes week 5. So they do play in week 5.
Yeah.
Broncos at the Jets. I'm sorry, Jets at the Broncos, which is interesting. But it's not like, Aaron Rodgers is going to have that one, starred on the calendar here. The Jets have to start in Buffalo on Monday Night Football, or against Buffalo on Monday Night Football. And we're going to be sitting there after week 1 and be like, this is the Jets division now because Aaron Rodgers is in town. Or, hey, the Bills are still the top dog in the division. There's going to be massive overreaction on Tuesday, September 12th, the next morning, no matter what happens that first night. But we're going to get that right off the bat. Jets, Bills. Then the Jets have to go to Dallas. They're home against the Patriots, who they haven't beaten in forever. We'll see if Rodgers can change that. Then they have the Chiefs. So you got the defending Super Bowl champs in week 4, and then you're at Denver in week 5. I mean, the Jets could be sitting there at 1-3 going into this Broncos game, and it really doesn't matter. They could also be sitting there at 3-1, and it's like, all right, this is what they expected, right? This is what the Jets were. This is why they got Aaron Rodgers. So I don't know. The Week 5 game will be a little bit more interesting, but there's a lot. Then they have the Eagles right after that, by the way, the Jets. The beginning of their schedule is
Brutal.
Absolutely brutal. And I think we're going to see this from a lot of AFC teams. It's going to look really rough on paper. As long as everybody stays healthy, those are some really good competitive matchups.
I mean, just across the board, we'll talk about this endlessly before the season, but there's too many good teams in the AFC and not enough wins for them all to get wins. Like, they're going to knock each other off, and there are going to be some teams that have crappy records that would, like, run the table in the NFC.